Hello there, and welcome back to Building the Boys. And happy spooky season to one and all. It's Halloween season, so it's time for more spooky tales from Building the Boys, because that's what we do in October. So this isn't about building. That's not what this is. So if you're here for building, sorry to disappoint you. This is spooky tales. So every October we tell some ghost stories and some spooky tales. We look into some of the myths and legends of Halloween and other spooky things. And this one in particular, I wouldn't go as far as say it's a spooky tale. It is, because it's Halloween. It's certainly creepy. But it's a story that rotates around Halloween every year, and it has done for about 50 years now. Probably longer, 60 years. And it's one I'd like to somewhat debunk. And you would have seen from the picture in the description, this is the razor blade in the apple. Not just the razor blade in the apple, the poison candy that kids can pick up on Halloween night. Where this story comes from, why it exists, and whether or not it is or isn't true. So the story goes quite simply, that children all over the world, mainly America and the UK, Canada, will come home from a night trick-or-treating and will have poison candy or something sinister placed inside one of their treats. So apples, for example, with razor blades. That was the famous one, that razor blades were inside of apples. So is this really happening? Is this really that common a thing? Well, the simple answer is no. I hate to disappoint you, but no, it isn't. So why do we believe it is? Well, this story can be largely attributed to an incident that did happen in Deer Park, Texas in 1974. And it involved a candy called Pixie Sticks. Now, some of you might not be familiar with the name Pixie Sticks, but you certainly know what Pixie Stick is. I'm going to show you a picture of a traditional Pixie Stick, and it'll give you an idea. But then we're talking to ones that you might have seen instead. But these are Pixie Sticks. So a Pixie Stick was basically a paper straw filled with sherbet, different flavoured sherbets. Your typical strawberries, lemons, things like that. But they changed in later lives. Depending on your age, you might not remember them being paper straws. You might remember the little plastic straws where you bite the end off and there was sherbet inside them. Those are Pixie Sticks. Traditionally, that's what they were called. So, in 1974, Deer Park, Texas, an 8-year-old boy died after eating cyanide that was found to be inside of a Pixie Stick on Halloween night, which caused panic. A few other Pixie Sticks were located in other children's trick-or-treat bags that had very small trace amounts of cyanide in them, but this was a lethal dose. So naturally people freaked out and they thought, okay, well, we've got some psychopath in the neighborhood poisoning children. And that is the root of this story. That's what really made this story catch fire and gain notoriety. What actually happened was the kid did indeed eat a lethal dose of cyanide that was inside a Pixie Stick. But where did that Pixie Stick come from is the question. Because it wasn't given to him whilst he was trick-or-treating. His father loaded a Pixie Stick with cyanide and put it into his Halloween candy when he got home. And the reason why was because he wanted the insurance payout. He wanted a life insurance payout on his 8-year-old son. What a scumbag. You will be pleased to know that they found out that it was him. To cover his tracks, he did give out some Pixie Sticks with trace amounts of cyanide on them. The idea being that some kids would maybe get sick but wouldn't die. And then it would further strengthen the story. So it wasn't just his kid that died of a mystery Pixie Stick. Others got ill but didn't die. Because he was stupid, but he wasn't that stupid. He didn't want the deaths of a bunch of kids that he didn't know on his hands. He just wanted his one kid out of the way so he could claim the life insurance money. That happened. That is a true story. However, this is more attributed to the typical murder. Most murder victims know their murderer. And that's exactly what happened in this case. So this wasn't random. And it certainly wasn't somebody given in the amount of trick-or-treat. This was premeditated. And this was used as the guise to disguise that crime. But before, obviously, they've caught the guy, word gets out that there's poison candy being given out by some psycho in the neighborhood. He was thankfully caught and he was put to death. He was executed 10 years later in 1984 for murdering his son. Which brings us on to the other thing with poison candy. So where does this come from? What other incidents have been involved in this? Some, but really minor, right? Nothing major at all. I mean, really minor things. So there's been incidents of... There was a famous one in the 1960s where a doctor gave out laxative pills. He laced candy with laxative to make kids basically crap their pants. And he was arrested for indecency. Common indecency and common assault. But again, didn't kill anyone. Didn't seriously harm anybody. It was just kind of a sick joke. There have been multiple instances of people giving out inedibles. Dog biscuits, rotten fruit, things like that. It's just some sort of mean prick thing to do, but there's been a lot of instances of that. Buttons, they're putting just crap inside kids' trick-or-treat bags. Now, maybe it's intentional, maybe it's some old dear that, marbles might be slowly disappearing and she put whatever in their bags, but that's what's happening there. There have been incidents as well where accidents have happened. So someone's dropped something in a bag that wasn't supposed to be in there. But typically, no. You'd be hard pushed to find an incident of this. Now, you might be listening to this and going, "You're wrong, Scott. I know someone this happened to." Do you? Were you there? Did you see it? Did it happen to anyone else? Because it'd be very weird that this would just happen to one kid, wouldn't it? And herein is where, with just the gentlest glance of Occam's razor, the story of the poison candy falls apart. Because you would like to think, you would imagine that if somebody was going to do this, there'd be a whole batch of candy. So it would be dozens of kids would be affected by this, not one. So when you hear like, "Oh no, you always hear these stories like the best urban myths and legends, a friend of a friend, or my cousin's friend this happened to, or a kid in the next town over this happened to, or I once heard about it on the news." Did you? Or are you just remembering it slightly wrong? Did it ever happen to you? No. Did it ever happen to one of your kids? No. Did it ever happen to any kid in your school? No. And if it did, that's the other interesting point, because I think it's in the high 90 percentile. So we're talking 90, 95 upwards percentage of cases of candy tampering have happened internally, they've happened in the home. And the bulk of those are done by the child themselves. So there have been lots of instances of a kid saying they found a razor blade and an apple, or they found glass or something like that. And what they've actually done is they did it themselves. And it's a prank, and it's gone too far, or it's done for attention. But most of these have been dispelled by that. That's exactly what it is. So why do we believe in it so much? Well, because it's a good story. I think the other thing is we tell it at Halloween. Halloween's the time we're trying to scare each other. So we tell spooky stories to each other, and one of them is poison candy. So it does the rounds. That's what happens. But thankfully, people aren't inherently evil. The other thing is as well, is even if they were, and you'll understand what I'm saying by this one, if you've ever heard of the thing of the bag of burning dog crap, so that they take a paper bag, they fill it with dog crap, set fire to it, put on someone's doorstep, knock the door, and run. Someone comes out to stomp it out, dog crap everywhere. Now, if you're going to do that, typically the kids will run and hide behind a car because they want to see you stomp the bag out. Because if you're going to do that, where's the payoff? If you're not going to see the bag get stomped out, did it ever get stomped out? I don't know. You're going to stay around to watch it. You want to see the punchline of the joke. And typically, somebody that's this twisted in the head is going to want to watch the result of their crime, which isn't going to happen if you're just randomly giving things out, and you're going to get caught real quick. So it's never... There is no incident of it. This is the thing. There is absolutely zero incident of any child ever dying from Halloween candy that wasn't something that was done internally in the home, that some random guy was just handing things out. This story gets a spin on it as well. So you will see things do the rounds on social media, which again is remarkable because urban myths and legends had all but died off. They were, for the longest time, you'd see photocopies of them would do the round, and somebody would pin one on a notice board at work or something. But then with the internet and social media particularly, the urban myth and the legend came back with a vengeance. They just slightly modernised them. And one that you see quite a lot is you'll see it'll be on Facebook or wherever, and it will say drug dealers are trying to get your kids hooked on crack cocaine, and they're calling it different names like strawberry meth or whatever it is. It's chocolate flavored, crystal meth, and they're trying to get your kids hooked on it. They give it to them for free for us to get them hooked. No, they're not, right? That's not happening either. And I'll tell you why. Those of you unfortunate enough to know a drug dealer, have you ever known one wake up before 9 a.m.? No, right? They typically don't linger around outside schools to sell their product because that stuff sells itself. This is a product that people will seek out drug dealers for and queue up en masse to buy their stuff. Drug pushers do not linger around outside schools trying to get your kids hooked because, well, they'd be arrested in about an hour. That's what would happen there, wouldn't it? Because this whole nonsense relies on every kid in school doing it, not telling their parents, right? Or it's nonsense. Also, as well, I mean, would you? I mean, I know drug dealers are a bit thick, but at the same time, why would you try and get a 9-year-old hooked on crack? Because of all that money that 9-year-olds are rolling in, they can buy it from you with. No, this is what I mean. When you apply logic to these stories, you go, okay, that actually seems like nonsense. And that's exactly what they are. But it'll still do the rounds. I guarantee at some point over Halloween, you will see on social media, you'll see whatever it is, that this is a threat to your kids. However, there is a very serious threat to your children on Halloween night. And as a result of everyone banging on about poison candy, what they don't do is talk about what the actual threat to your kids is on Halloween night. Children from the ages of 1 to 17 are 3 times more likely to get killed by a car on Halloween night than any other night of the year. 3 times more likely. Now, granted, that's because there's more children on the streets, but it's also because it's dark. So rather than warning your kids about the dangers of some creepy candy that might be there, brush up on the Green Cross Code, because that is the biggest risk to them on Halloween night. We don't ever discuss it, though. You don't ever see campaigns saying, if you're at trick-or-treating tonight, remember to look both ways, remember to listen, remember to cross where it's clear. You don't hear that. They don't do that. But that is the more important thing that will happen on Halloween night. So if you have children that are going out trick-or-treating, tell them, look both ways, listen for traffic, cross where it's clear, cross where it's lit, because that is the most important thing. That is the biggest risk to children on Halloween night, being run over. 3 times more likely to get hit by a car on Halloween night than any other night of the year. But no one talks about that. Instead, we talk about a myth that's never happened of killer candy. Isn't that strange? But that is the story of the razor blades and the apples. There's never been one. I mean, how hard would it be to get a razor blade into a bloody apple? Do you know what I mean? So that's that story. I'm sure one of you is at least going to come back and go, no, this happened to me. I'm like, okay. Well, I'd love to hear your story, and I'm sure other people would as well. But no, there's absolutely zero proof. So no, you don't need to worry about it. I mean, the only thing you really need to worry about on Halloween night's cars. That's it. Make sure your kids know how to cross the road on Halloween night and tell them to be careful because they're excited, it's dark, and accidents happen. But as for some creepy weirdo poison your kids or some drug dealer giving away, a kilo of whatever it is, it's not going to happen. But that is the story of the razor blades and the apples. That is the story of where it came from. And that is why, well, you can choose whether you want to believe it or not. Otherwise, you don't. But that's all from me. We'll be back with more builds from Build with the Boys, Halloween builds as well, and spooky tales from Build with the Boys coming up very, very soon. Until then, take care, and I'll see you very, very soon. Don't have nightmares.